Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to completely dismantle the emotional traps around money and hand you a concrete, step-by-step playbook to build actual wealth. Have you ever wondered why making more money rarely feels like you actually have more money? If you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by your finances, or like no matter how much you earn, you're just not getting ahead, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to break down the exact strategies used by the top 1 to 2% to bulletproof their financial futures.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap. We're covering 1. The psychology of wealth, 2. The silent wealth destroyers, 3. The power of compounding, 4. The bucket budgeting system, and finally, 5. Habits for long-term wealth. Let's dive right in.
Part 1. The psychology of wealth, dismantling the illusion.
You know, you probably think you're totally logical with your finances. We all do. But the reality? Money is deeply psychological, and it is incredibly emotional. A lot of us build these perfect spreadsheets and plan like machines, but we're flawed humans, right? We panic during market downturns, we constantly compare ourselves to our neighbors, and we fall into this massive cognitive trap of thinking that looking rich is the exact same thing as being rich. But true wealth is silent. As Morgan Housel brilliantly puts it, wealth is financial assets that haven't yet been converted into the stuff you see. Spending your money just to show people how much money you have is literally the fastest way to have less of it. Wealth is the money you didn't use to upgrade your car. It's the cash you didn't burn just to feel successful for a fleeting moment.
When you buy expensive things, you end up suffering from what's called the man in the car paradox. Think about it. When someone sees a super loud Ferrari revving its engine at a stoplight, they don't actually admire the driver. Nobody is standing there thinking, wow, that driver is such a cool person. No, they're literally just picturing themselves sitting in that leather seat. People aren't admiring you, they're simply reflecting their own desires. Looking rich gets you attention, sure, but being wealthy, that gets you freedom, time, and genuine peace of mind. So the practical takeaway here is simple. Always choose the hammock of financial security over the absolute headache of a massive car payment. Now that we're resetting that mindset, we need to talk about the mathematical realities working against you.
Section 2. The silent wealth destroyers, the invisible forces against you.
Once you stop trying to just look rich, you've got to protect your money from the invisible forces that are actively trying to make you poor. And the absolute biggest one is the silent engine of inflation. Listen, while the official consumer price index might be comfortably reported around, say, 4 to 6%, the real-life inflation rate that you actually experience on a daily basis is much, much higher. It's often closer to 8 to 10%. Why is there such a massive gap? Well, because the government measures this generic basket of goods, but your actual lifestyle costs, the things you truly care about, are climbing aggressively. It's just a slow, methodical erosion of your buying power.
Just look at the things middle-class families actually spend massive amounts of money on. If you look at vital expenditures like education and healthcare, they are rising far, far faster than the standard inflation rate. We're talking healthcare costs surging at 13 to 14% and education climbing well over 10%. So if you're a parent saving up for your kid's college fund and you're getting, let's say, a 6% return on your savings, you aren't growing your wealth. You are actively falling behind tuition hikes. If you're just matching standard inflation, you're actually losing ground on the expenses that matter most to your family's future.
Imagine you work hard, you live below your means, and you put a large sum, say 1 crore, or really any major savings, into a safe bank savings account earning 3.5%, or maybe a fixed deposit earning 7.4%. Your brain falls right into a cognitive trap. You think you're growing your money safely. Actually, scratch that. You feel like you're doing the responsible thing. But let's walk through the actual math. When you factor in a 30% tax bracket on those earnings, and then subtract that real-life inflation rate of 8%, your net effective return is incredibly negative. You are literally losing 3 to 5.5% of your wealth's purchasing power every single year just by leaving it safely in the bank. Bank safety essentially equals a guaranteed loss of purchasing power. Crazy, right?
Section 3. The power of compounding, the eighth wonder of the world.
Okay, so if inflation is the silent destroyer, compounding is your silent builder. You have to make sure your money is growing faster than it's being destroyed. Want to know exactly when your portfolio will double? Use the rule of 72. It's this incredibly practical little cheat code. You just divide 72 by your annual interest rate. So at a basic 7% return, it takes a little over 10 years to double your money. But if you can optimize your investments to hit a 15% return, your money doubles in just 4.8 years. This mathematical reality shows that scale and time are literally the most important variables in wealth creation. Think of it this way. Time is your most powerful, unpaid employee. You don't have to manage it, you just have to let it work. Consider Warren Buffett for a second. He's widely celebrated as one of the greatest investors in history, worth over $160 billion. But here's the most astonishing part of his entire story. He made over $156 billion of that wealth after his 65th birthday. No joke. He didn't get ridiculously wealthy just by chasing massive, risky, short-term returns. He got incredibly wealthy by starting young, avoiding major losses, and just staying in the game for over 8 decades. Seriously, let time do the heavy lifting for you.
Section 4. The Bucket Budgeting System, the Practical Playbook.
Now that your mindset is primed and the math of inflation and compounding is crystal clear, we need to automate your financial offense and defense. This is your practical playbook for exactly where to put your money every single time you get paid. I want you to picture your income flowing through a pipe. Before it even reaches your savings, it must first pass through a filter, your health and term insurance. By filtering for insurance first, you instantly remove the massive cognitive anxiety of a sudden medical bankruptcy wiping out decades of your hard work. Once it safely passes through that protective filter, the money cascades down to fill your 3 buckets, strictly in order.
Bucket 1 is your absolute immediate defense line. This bucket holds 2 to 4 months of your essential living expenses. You want to keep this highly liquid, ideally in a bank auto-sweep fixed deposit. Why an auto-sweep? Because practically, it earns slightly more interest than a dead savings account, but the funds can still be accessed instantly at an ATM during a 2 a.m. crisis. It's just there so you never, ever have to panic or take on terrible credit card debt during a short-term emergency. And this is absolutely crucial. You do not let a single drop of money move to Bucket 2 until Bucket 1 is completely full.
Okay, so once Bucket 1 overflows, the money pours into Bucket 2. This is your medium-term safety net, holding anywhere from 6 months up to 3 years of living expenses, safely parked in ultra-short or short-term debt funds. Think about the profound psychology of having this kind of runway. I mean, how many people stay in incredibly toxic jobs simply because they don't have Bucket 2 filled? Having up to 3 years of expenses saved up is what gives you the ultimate freedom to take a career risk, walk away from a bad boss, or start a business, all without the paralyzing stress of immediate starvation.
Finally, only when those first 2 defense buckets are completely overflowing do you let the money pour into Bucket 3. This one is for aggressive, long-term wealth compounding over a 5+ year horizon. This is where you invest heavily in equity, index funds, or real estate. And here is the psychological defense mechanism this entire system creates. When the stock market inevitably drops 20%, and it will, your brain is going to scream at you to panic and sell. But because your next 3 years of living expenses are safely tucked away in Buckets 1 and 2, you can completely ignore the news and just let Bucket 3 recover. It's a game changer.
Section 5. Habits for long-term wealth. The long-term horizon.
As we've learned from the psychology of money, getting rich and staying rich are completely different games. Getting rich is all about playing offense. It's bold, it's loud, it requires taking massive risks and maintaining extreme optimism. But staying rich, that requires a little bit of paranoia and a whole lot of humility. It is entirely about playing defense and avoiding catastrophic mistakes. You literally just have to survive the market downturns and the bad luck long enough for compounding to actually work its magic. To keep this whole system running smoothly, you need a few highly focused daily habits. First, to earn more, you must proactively upgrade your location and your skills. Your address and your deep specialization are the biggest levers to determine your income scale. Second, you have got to avoid the cognitive trap of FOMO. Your college roommate's fancy Instagram vacation? That's a financial trap. Ignore it completely. Running your own race is a legit financial superpower. Third, retrain your brain to treat market volatility as a fee, not a fine. When your portfolio drops, you aren't being punished. It's simply the price of admission for long-term gains. And finally, accept that you will fundamentally change over the next 10 years. Your goals will shift, so build extreme flexibility into your financial plans so you don't trap your future self in a lifestyle you no longer even want.
The absolute core of that flexibility is building what we call a margin of safety. The greatest financial plan in the world is simply planning that your plan won't go according to plan. We're always taught to save for a house or save for a car, right? But saving money without a specific goal is incredibly smart. It creates this critical buffer to absorb sheer bad luck, like a suddenly broken boiler in the dead of winter or an unexpected corporate layoff. This margin of safety is exactly what lets you sleep peacefully at night when the rest of the world is completely panicking.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to step back and honestly evaluate your financial trajectory. The ultimate goal of money isn't to just buy luxury stuff. It's to buy control over your time. It's that profound ability to wake up every single morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. So ask yourself, whose game are you playing? Are you building true wealth that brings ultimate freedom, or are you just chasing an illusion, going into debt to impress people who aren't even watching? Think about that, start filling those buckets, and take permanent control of your financial future.